qualified than I am to talk about metabolic health, to talk about how we can resolve so many of our issues. The ones that I listed off that I had personally, that if you're dealing with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, inflammation, IBS, PCOS, erectile dysfunction for men, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, all of these things, we have the wonderful Dr. Dieter, who is going to really teach us what we can do to make our lives better. And so after our stories, Dr. Dieter is going to take over, and then I will come back on and share a little bit about the protocol, and then we will have some time for question and answers. So starting out, I would love to invite my new friend Randy on, and Randy is going to tell his story. So here we go, Randy. You've unmuted. Randy, you're so awesome. Randy and I just met yesterday on the phone, and I would love, Randy, if you would just tell everybody a little bit about where you were with your health before you started the protocol, and then basically where are you now?
Well, basically, I was not in a very good spot. I was pushing 400 pounds. Recently retired in 2019, but just really didn't do anything after I retired, and pretty much sat in a chair. Had trouble walking, couldn't walk 5 houses up the street, on heart medication, blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, muscle spasm medication, and type 2 diabetes medication. So I was not in a real good place, and I just prayed to the Lord to show me something. And believe it or not, my grandkids wanted me to download TikTok so I could watch reels with them, so I did. And 2 days later, my coach Dean Dominguez was on TikTok, and didn't think the Lord would answer the prayer going through TikTok, but hey, He works in mysterious ways. And so I contacted Dean, and everything that he talked about, I pretty much had. And so I was depressed. I was very tired, not mobile, just not good.
Yeah. Hey, I have some pictures of you, but let's hear what happened since you started using, like, how has this changed for you? What have been your results?
Well, my results is, as of last week, or about 10 days ago, because I weigh about every 3 weeks. I didn't like the pressure of, every other day or something. I just let the protocol be consistent with it. Not perfect, but just consistent. But as of about 10 days ago, in less than 9 months, I have lost 130 pounds. In my first 90 days, my A1C went from 7.6 to 5.2. And then within 6 months to 8 months, I'm off every medication, the blood pressure, the cholesterol, the type 2 diabetes. I'm off of all that medication. The only thing I'm still on is blood clots that I've had for at least a decade or so. And energy, being able to do things with my grandkids when I wouldn't even go outside with them. My life has changed. Faith is a big part of my life, but I just now am just having a great time. Joined a gym in in December. Me and my wife I go 3 or 4 times a week. So I've just been able just to refocus with the teas and fibers, feeling great, walking. Never went on a cruise or anything like that because I just couldn't walk 100 yards. So now we booked a cruise with our best friends to go in November. So we're just, it's just been fantastic. I thank the Lord first, but I think coaches, Dean and William Winterton have been tremendous help. And my family life and my kids are just ecstatic. We got a lot of them on the protocol as well. So in 9 months, my life has completely taken a 180 change.
Randy, I actually want to cry. That is so, if you could see the chat, you probably can't see the chat. It is just blowing up with everybody saying how happy they are for you and how wonderful. But I love, you talked about your scale victory, right? Like how much weight you lost, but how many non-scale victories you just talked about.
Well,
amazing. right? While you're saying that, I'm going to show your before and afters really quickly because they are so powerful. Can you guys see his before and afters up here? Okay. No, not yet. Okay, let's see. Now you can. Okay, thank you, Keith. I can see you giving me the thumbs up. I need Randy. Look at these pants. Look at these pants.
I hate to say, but those were mine. They're not. Well, they're still mine, but they're in the closet.
It's so awesome, Randy. This has been amazing. I mean, this face to face. That's November to April.
Right.
Absolutely unbelievable, Randy. This is just, it's so powerful. And I'm so thankful that you have shared your story because I know that somebody on this call sees themselves in you. And you are giving people hope. And that is one of the most amazing gifts that we can give each other is, hey, look, if I can do it, you can do it. Right?
Absolutely.
So, Randy, thank you so much for being with us. You are just such a gem, and I hope that you have continued success. I know you will because you figured it out. And that's pretty awesome. I love it.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, I am going to have our next guest come on, who's Tammy. Let's see. I think she's all ready to come on here. Tammy, yay!
Yay!
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. Okay, you guys, Tammy is not a paid actress, even though she looks beautiful, like she could be one. But Tammy, will you tell us, like, same thing I asked Randy, what was your health like before you started the protocol?
If you've ever watched the movie Zombies, that's what I felt like. I've been a nurse for 50 years and I can care for everybody else with my eyes closed. But you tend to put yourself on the bottom of the totem pole the way things are set up in our world. I've always almost fought with people in the hospital setting because I hate when people say that you've been in healthcare your whole life. I've never been in healthcare until this year. I've been in sick care in hospital settings. They don't want us healthy. They only want to give us things to make us stay alive. And I told my doctor that I would rather be dead than live like this another year. So this all transpired with my wonderful coaches that brought me into this program with them. And so my health, I was an obese child going through high school. More pounds and more pounds come on. I just got tired of being on a scale. It was so frustrating because no matter what you did, nothing stayed because you have to absolutely make a change in your mind and your life. And so I had lost 150 pounds about 6 years ago. And yes, I was thinner, but my metabolic health was still crappy. All my labs were still crappy. I was still on, I wasn't on 14 meds, but I was on several meds. And they, seems like every time when you take one, you have to take another to combat that side effect and all that stuff. So my mom got cancer. And then my father-in-law died. And then a couple of years later, my mom died. So all this time caregiving for elderly and do all the things plus jobs and grandchildren and all those things, I put on another 50 pounds, the original 50 pounds. And then I told myself, oh my God, how did I carry another 100? I was miserable with the 50 coming back on it. And so I have been on every medicine. I went to a doctor here about 6 years ago, and I was on 3 low dose medicines. And as of a week ago, Monday, I was on 14 meds. Everything from diabetes to IBS to high blood pressure to cholesterol to kidney, this and that, it's just a sandwich board full of what it was. And so when I was introduced to this, I know Jennifer and Robin are going to be hearing me, but I really was doing this because I love Jennifer and I just wanted to support her. And then I found out about Mindset 60, which is something that we do along with the protocol and the Feel Great system. And it's really just truly changing your mind, finding out the metabolic health in all of these classes and all of these things that we're doing today, and putting all of those into practice to changing from the inside out. Gut health is the most important. And as of a week ago, Monday, I got 11 medicines DC'd, and I'm only on 3 low doses, and I'm going to be weaning off of those. So I'm down 38 pounds. That's just the bonus. I feel
Yeah.
like the health, I can really say that I feel healthy. You know, my hair is healthier, my nails are healthier, but more than that, my gut has been this way for almost 50 years. And so I had pancreatitis when I was a kid and had surgery, and then I had gastroplasty to try to help with, converting to insulin. So I've done everything known to mankind to do something different for my health. And until this last year, when things started, and actually it's been 6 months that it just really, the gut kind of got into that healthy place. And that's where the 38 pounds has been falling off in the 6 months. So I just have about 20 more pounds to get back to my goal. But more than that, I just want to scream from the mountaintops that, I've seen everything negative known to everybody about, oh, it's just another MLM company, and it's just snake oils and abracadabra and smoke and mirrors. You can say whatever you want. I personally work for an MLM when I work at the hospital. I don't get any more money than anybody else does, but the guy at the top who does nothing for us gets it all. That's an MLM to me. This is just a product that's the avenue of marketing. It has nothing to do with what it does to your body. And so I am grateful every day that this came into my life, and it's even changed my life with God more, because I always felt like, as a kid even, that I was never enough, even for God. I feel like all you have to do is, you've got so much, other people are just dumping on you all the time. I'm just going to take care of all this myself, and I'm going to thank you and everything, but I'm going to do this. Well, that's not how this works. I had to totally put this in his hands and ask him, please, I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to do anymore. I just want to know what it feels like to feel healthy. And I can say today, I know.
Oh, Tammy, I love that so, so much. I want to share your before and some of your before and afters really quickly as well. And I love what you were talking about, because at the end of the day, there are so many different ways that we are affected by changing our health. And like you said, it's not just a number on the scale. It's the different things that you've been able to feel. Sorry, my computer is taking a second. I think our picture should be up now. Can you see the picture for me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So here we go. We've got some before and afters, which are just the visual story. But I'm so thankful that you were able to share even more about what has happened for you, because at the end of the day, like I said, we have choices, right? We have avenues that we can take, and it sounds like this has just been such a wonderful fit for you. And it's not just a number on the scale. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that very shortly here. So Tammy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this so much.
You are so very welcome. And we are going to get into the next part of our call here. Let's see if I can. I'm going to remove the spotlight there. Okay, so we have had some amazing, amazing stories. And like I said before, I am not a unicorn. And that is what I am here to testify over and over. There are so many people that need help. And thankfully, we have people like our wonderful medical professional, Dr. Dieter, who is going to be joining us right now. I want to just introduce him. He explains things in such an amazing way. And I'm so excited. I learn from him every time I hear him talk, but I just want to tell you a tiny bit about Dr. Dieter. He is a dual board certified physician in internal medicine and pediatrics, and he has dedicated his work to metabolic medicine. So after realizing that so many of the chronic diseases are driven by reversible metabolic dysfunction, he has made it his mission to really just help patients move beyond symptom management and reclaim their health. So he educates, he advocates, and he empowers individuals to just restore vitality and break free from something that I was in the loophole of from lifelong dependence on medications. So I am not going to talk anymore because Dr. Dieter has very important things to say. So Dr. Dieter, please take it away.
All right. Katie, thank you so much for that introduction. It's a pleasure. This is something which is a huge passion of mine now. It's, as you heard from Katie, it is now my mission to help as many people understand the simple reasons why we are sick today. And what I would like to do today in our talk is I would like to help you understand why we are sick and show you a simple solution to how we can walk back from illness to reclaiming our health. So I start by asking the simple question of why are we so sick today? And the answer is simpler than you think. We are sick today because we eat in ways that harm our body's natural biology. You see, food is supposed to be medicine, but it can be poison. And unfortunately, it is the latter to most of us. It is poison to us. We eat in ways that have two key systems in our bodies. And what are those two key systems? Those two key systems are the way our body makes energy and the way our gut functions. Now, these two key systems, how our body makes energy, number one, and how our gut functions, number two, are the reasons why we are sick today. So what I want to do, I want you to understand how our body makes energy is related to why, we are dealing with the diseases we deal today, and how our gut functions and how that relates to why we are sick today. So let's begin by how our body makes energy. See, our body makes energy principally by the command of this hormone called insulin. Insulin is a very critical hormone in the body. In fact, I consider insulin to be the most important hormone in the body. Insulin's nickname that I gave is that it is the CEO of the body. You see, when insulin is working well as the CEO of the body, the chief operating officer, a chief executive officer, everything works smoothly in the body. That's how important insulin is as a CEO. You have a CEO of a company running the company smoothly. So why do I elevate insulin to this high of a level? Because of its job. Now, what is the job of insulin? You see, when we eat, the end result is that there is a release of glucose into our bloodstream. Insulin's job is to move that glucose out of the bloodstream into the cell. When the glucose gets into the cell, there is a special organelle in our cell called the mitochondria. You may remember from your junior biology class as the mitochondria being called the powerhouse of the cell. It's an energy factory. So insulin now mobilizes that glucose into the mitochondria. Now in the mitochondria, the glucose is taken through that energy factory and spits out an energy molecule called ATP. ATP is simply energy, and that is how insulin helps to secure the body's energy need. Now, why is that important? Every cell in our body requires energy to function. You have to pay with the cellular currency of ATP, and insulin sits central at procuring the body's energy needs. The smallest entity of the body is a cell. Cells group up to form tissues, which group up to form organs, which group up to form systems that forms the whole human. When the cell has the energy it needs to function, it functions well. The simplest definition of a disease, ladies and gentlemen, is simply a group of cells, tissues, organs, or systems that have stopped functioning well because they do not have the energy that they need to function well. Keep that in mind. When you hear about people dealing with diabetes, blood pressure, all of that, it's just simply an energy problem. Now, that is insulin's job. Now, when there is a breakdown in this process of insulin securing the body's energy needs, we call that breakdown insulin resistance. So you cannot go from insulin to energy. Now, Why do you have insulin resistance? Let's answer the question of why. And it's simple. And the reason is that in today's day and age, unfortunately, we're consuming an excess amount of calories, 35% more calories than our ancestors consumed. And what that is doing is that is causing insulin to have to do this job 35% over time. Katie, if you have a job and your employer told you, Katie, I'm going to expect you to work 35% over time every day, what's going to happen is you're going to get burned out. And when you get burned out, what's going to happen is your productivity is going to decrease. So we are consuming 35% more calories than our ancestors did. Insulin is having to go to work 35% over time to do the job of moving glucose into the cell. And what has happened is that insulin has gotten burned out. As insulin has gotten burned out, insulin's productivity has decreased, and insulin can no longer secure the body's energy needs. That is why, you see, our ancestors were eating about a meal or a meal and a half a day. In today's day and age, we're grazing like cattle on a Texas ranch. We're eating about 11 times a day. Our insulin was not meant to always be working. So that is the why. Now we got to answer the question of how. How do you develop insulin resistance? You got to go down to the cellular level. What is happening at the level of the cell that causes you to develop insulin resistance? And this is exactly what's happening. The first is that there is a development of too much fat in the cell. And I'll explain to you in details what happens when you have too much fat in the cell. It leads to a second problem, the development of too much insulin. So these two entities, will result in insulin resistance. I'll show you how. A cell is normally supposed to look like this. When we consume an excess amount of calories that we are supposed to, 35% more calories, the body takes those excess calories and converts those excess calories into fat. The body doesn't know what to do with that fat, and it lumps the fat into this cell. And I'll have you a replica of this cell like this. So this cell now becomes what I call a fat-laden cell. And that's a problem because, when you have glucose in the blood, the job of insulin is to move that glucose into the cell. But now the cell is fat laden. When glucose comes and knocks on the door of the cell to say, when insulin knocks on the door of the cell and says, I got glucose in the blood that I need you to take up. This cell tells insulin, I'm sorry, I am pregnant with fat. There is no room in the inn. All the beds are taken. If I were to bring glucose in, glucose will have no place to lay its head. So the cell refuses to take glucose in, rightfully so. And when the cell refuses to take glucose in, what happens is that you now have an accumulation of glucose in the blood because glucose cannot enter the cell. When glucose accumulates in the blood, a text message is sent to the pancreas because there is a one-to-one relationship between the amount of glucose in the blood and the concentration of insulin produced by the pancreas. So when glucose is high, the pancreas gets a text message saying there is so much glucose in the blood, you need to produce a commensurate, a reasonable amount of insulin to drive that glucose down. So the pancreas now produces too much insulin, and too much insulin is no bueno. Remember how I described insulin as being the CEO of the body? It runs the body. Imagine a CEO of a company that ran the company smoothly. One day he comes to work, he has gone crazy, backing unreasonable demands to his employees, firing people for no good reason. He becomes a bully and a tyrant. His employees are going to lose their respect for him because he has become a bully. Human nature, guys, when you don't respect somebody, you don't want to do anything for them. So when insulin is running too high, too much insulin, it now becomes like a crazy CEO acting as a bully and a tyrant. It's bullying the cell. The cell doesn't take kindly to that bullying. The cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, when insulin asks the cell to now open its door so it can let glucose in, the cell says, no way, Jose, there's no way I'm doing that. I don't respect you. And so that is what is happening at the cellular level to cause you for glucose not to be able to enter the cell to make energy. Insulin resistance, a breakdown in going from insulin to producing energy. Now, that happens and causes the accumulation of further glucose in the cell. So what has happened is that's how you develop insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, you guys heard about issues with obesity. You have the testimonies of Tammy, insulin resistance. You have insulin resistance, you have a deficiency of energy, it manifests with these diseases: heart disease, fatty liver disease, high blood pressure. All these diseases, if you remember how it described the disease, a group of cells, tissues, organs, or systems that stop functioning because they do not have the energy that they need to function. And that is as simple as that. And unfortunately, this slide is not exhaustive of all the diseases that cause insulin resistance. There's a slew of so many modern day diseases that we cannot enumerate on this slide that come as a result of that energy shortage. Now, how do we fix the insulin resistance problem? We have understood the why it happens. We've understood the how at the cellular level. How do you fix it? And that is where the Feel Great system comes in. What is the Feel Great system? It is a nutraceutical. Nutraceutical means your products made 100% from plants. And in this system, you have two products, a product called Unimate and a product called Balance. These two products, I'll show you how they go to help fix the insulin resistance problem. So let's start with the Unimate. The Unimate, how is it a solution for insulin resistance? Well, it is made from a plant that is native to South America called the yerba mate plant. And this plant is rich in a special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Chlorogenic acid has many metabolic benefits, but we're going to use two of the properties of chlorogenic acid to help reverse insulin resistance. The first property is that this natural occurring phytonutrient in this plant causes the body to produce its own GLP-1s. You may have heard of GLP-1s from the drugs like Ozempic, Mounjaro, what have you. What you may not know is that the body produces this hormone naturally. And this phytonutrient, chlorogenic acid, ingestion of it causes the body's GLP-1s to go. I'll show you how that helps us to reverse insulin resistance. The second thing is that the property of the Unimate is that it has a fat burning property. We will use this. Now, if you remember the why we developed insulin resistance is because we were consuming an excess amount of calories than our ancestors did. So the GLP-1 problem, the GLP-1 property is going to help us address the why problem, the 35% excess calories. Katie has gotten burnt out because her employer has worked her 35% over time every day. The only way Katie can recuperate from that burnout is if she rests. She needs to rest from the job. That's the only way. It's the same thing with insulin. Insulin is burnt out, and the only way insulin can recuperate from his burnout and become an effective employee again is rest. And how do you rest your insulin? You rest your insulin by time restricted eating, also known as intermittent fasting. I submit to us that we need to adopt something similar to what our ancestors were doing. Ancestors ate a meal and a half a day or a meal a day. We're eating 11 times a day. Why don't we go down to 2 meals a day? So I submit to us that we need to begin a discipline of fasting for 16 hours. When you're fasting for 16 hours, it's going to allow your insulin to rest, because when you do not bring in calories, glucose is not produced. When glucose is not produced, the pancreas doesn't have to get on the phone and call insulin to come to work. And now, and the easiest way to begin intermittent fasting is to make breakfast extinct. It's not an important meal as you've been made to think. And restrict yourself to just 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner. So let's say you have dinner at 7 p.m. and wake up in the morning at 7 a.m. You've already been fasting for 12 hours. What we want to help you do is to help extend your fast by another 4 hours to 16 hours. Now, that is where the GLP-1 property of the Unamate comes in. There's some people who are not able to skip breakfast and fast without feeling like World War III is about to start. That is where the GLP-1 property of the Unamate is useful. When you consume the Unamate, it causes the body to produce its own GLP-1s. GLP-1 is a glucagon-like peptide hormone. It's a satiety hormone. It will go to the hunger center of your brain and shut down the hunger center of your brain and make you feel not hungry. So you're going through breakfast seamless, and World War III is not about to start. It makes it simple. It takes away the willpower from that. And when you're fasting for 16 hours, your insulin is resting. If it rests, it could recuperate from its burnout and become an effective employee again. So that's how the Unamate's property of GLP-1 induction can help us in addressing the insulin resistance problem. Now, let's talk about the fat burning property of Unamate, how we're going to utilize that, to solve the insulin resistance problem. It's going to help us answer the question of how. And we have to go back to the cellular level. Remember, what happened at the cellular level was the development of too much fat, which led to the development of too much fat, which led to insulin resistance at the first stage. So what happens is that the Unamate has a fat burning property. When you consume Unamate, it causes lipolysis, fat burning. So this cell that is laden with fat, what is going to happen? Fat burning will occur, and this cell will now return to the normal. When this cell returns to normal, the glucose that had accumulated in the blood can now, you first resolve the too much fat problem. The glucose that had accumulated in the blood now enters the cell. You could run it through the energy factory, to make energy, and the concentration of glucose in the blood drops. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, what happens is that a message is sent to the pancreas to tell the pancreas, hey, listen, you need to now produce a low amount of insulin. We do not have that much glucose in the blood again. And the low amount of insulin is like that CEO that was initially crazy. He returns to it. He's humble. When he's humble, he comes to his employees, calls an in-service, and gives an apology. I've been a jerk of a boss for the last 3 months. People, please, will you forgive me? If my boss offended me and I lost my respect for him, and you came to me and called me by name and told me, Dr. Deegan, I wronged you, please forgive me. I'll regain my respect back for my boss after I've forgiven them. When my boss then asks me to jump, I say, how high, boss? You translate that to the cell. When insulin has now become low, it has taken a humble disposition. The cell regains its respect back for insulin. When the cell regains its respect back for insulin, when insulin now asks the cell, open your doors, the cell say, I'll be happy to. The cell opens its doors. You could now have that energy produced by glucose entering the cell more. So that's what that does. So by resolving the too much fat problem, it causes you to resolve the too much insulin problem happening at the cellular level. Now, so the first issue resolves the second issue, and that's what the Unimate does. It's fat burning property. The other product in the protocol is a product called Balance, the Feel Great system. Balance is fiber, and what fiber does is that fiber contributes to fat burning. Because fiber contributes to fat burning, fiber is going to help resolve insulin resistance in a similar way that Unimate did. It's going to cause this fat-laden cell to return like this. It will solve the too much fat problem and solve the too much insulin problem, resolving it at the cellular level. Now, there is another important thing that fiber does. Fiber helps to cushion your blood sugar. It makes the rise in your blood sugar to be lower than it will be without fiber. How is that? Let me give you an illustration. If let's say you and I went to an Italian restaurant to have lasagna, and you ate your plate of lasagna without fiber, your blood sugar is going to do this. And that blood sugar for you may be a blood sugar of 160. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber. Fiber is going to cushion my blood sugar. So what I do is I take the Balance product, which is saturated with fiber, and I consume the exact same quantity of lasagna. This is what my blood sugar profile is going to look like. And that blood sugar for me may be a blood sugar of 80. So for you, you produce 160 units of insulin. Your pancreas is going to have to get on the phone and say, hey, you know what? 20 units of insulin. You got to come to work today. For me, I've only done 80 of glucose. My pancreas gets on the phone and says, you know what? 3 units of insulin. You have to come to work today. 2 different profiles separated by Balance, fiber. Now, what happens if your insulin is burned out because it has worked too much? Do you want to be walking out calling more insulin to come to work? No. 20 units, that's what fiber does. Fiber causes less insulin to come to work. The less insulin comes to work, more insulin is resting to recuperate from its burnout. The other thing that I want you to think about fiber is like helps to humble your insulin. 20 units of insulin is considered the crazy CEO, high CEO. Employees will not respect that. And a low insulin, 3 units of insulin, is considered the humble CEO. The cells will respect them more. Let's go to the second issue why we're sick. We've seen how our body makes energy relates to why we're sick. Let's talk about how the gut functions and how that relates to why we're sick. It's simple. The function of our gut depends on the population of healthy bacteria. You see, in our gut, we have about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria in our gut, and they have a special name called the microbiome. And this bacteria population in our gut live in a 50-50% proportion, 50% good bacteria, 50% bad bacteria. And this proportion is important for the functions of the gut. This slide enumerates some of the functions of the gut. And one important function of the gut here that I want to highlight is it helps to regulate and train the immune system. When the gut is healthy, it trains your immune system to protect you, which is what your immune system is supposed to do. When the gut is not healthy, instead of training your immune system to protect you, it trains your immune system to become an ingrown terrorist to attack you. You see, in our gut, you may not know it, but 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. And the other 30% resides in the bone marrow and the lymphatics. And the gut is responsible for that. Now, there is something we call gut imbalance, which is a scenario where you lose the 50-50% proportion. The good bacteria decrease to 30, the bad bacteria increase to 70. And what is the cause of gut imbalance? shortage of fiber. You see, every living organism needs food, nutrients. A lion in the jungle needs nutrients. Bacteria in your gut needs nutrients. Unfortunately, our foods are so processed, we're not consuming enough fiber. It's causing a shortage of food. When there is a shortage of food, a survival of the fittest sets in. The good and bad bacteria put on gloves to dwell it out. The bad bacteria, the stronger bacteria, they win that fight. When they win that fight, what they do is, they say, you know what? They win the fight and then they hoard the little fiber that is there to themselves. And they say, you know what? We don't have enough and the mass of those guys over there. So why don't we increase our army to 70% to keep a monopoly of this little food that is there? And they do that at the expense of the good bacteria. When you have that, you have gut imbalance. Now, just to give you a sense, we're supposed to be consuming 30 to 40 grams of fiber. The average man and woman in the US is consuming 10 to 12 grams of fiber a day. So how do you solve the gut imbalance problem, which we will get to? First of all, I want you to understand that when you have gut imbalance, you now have these autoimmune diseases that come as a result of the gut training the immune system to attack you. I want to highlight colon cancer because colon cancer is now linked to fiber deficiency. If you're a young person and you want to decrease your risk of colon cancer, fiber is your friend. Anxiety and depression come from the gut, guys, and you should not be surprised. Why? Because serotonin, our happy hormone, is produced in the gut. Now, 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. The other 10% is produced in the central nervous system. When the gut is not healthy, when the gut is not healthy and you have gut imbalance, that 90% cannot be produced. You're now reliant on 10%. You have anxiety and depression. So how do we solve the gut imbalance problem? The problem is fiber. You give the gut fiber. And when you give the gut fiber, you restore the 50-50% balance. And what is fiber? What is balance? Balance is fiber. So that is how balance can help restore the 50-50 proportion of the gut. So I will end by saying this. Why are we so sick today? Because of an energy shortage. An energy shortage is coming from these two things: insulin resistance and gut imbalance. These two things have caused a global energy shortage. And in as much as there is evidence that shows that these are the two reasons why we're sick, thankfully, there is now evidence that says that if we can restore that energy shortage coming from these two entities, you could reverse the disease condition. And that is what these two systems provide. And I end by saying this. If I have a car and the car ran out of gas, that car is going to stop. That car stops not because of the intrinsic failure of the engine, but because it has run out of its energy source. If you went to the gas station, got gas, and put gas in that car starts again. Why? Because you have restored its energy. So is with the body. These diseases that we face in modern day society are energy shortage issue. And it is so simple but so profound. Just like that car started again when you restore its energy, your body could heal itself when you restore its energy. And I'll end by making a very bold claim that the Feel Great system can help you to be able to restore your energy balance and reclaim your health again. Thank you very much, Katie, for giving me the platform, and I'll stop sharing.
I love it. Okay, my mind is like blown right now because I just learned so much. The CEO and the car with the energy and the gas, like that's it. We can go home. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Such a good presentation. You are such a phenomenal teacher. And that's really what this is about. This is learning. This is being educated, because when we're educated, we can make better choices that actually help us. So I am just going to take a quick minute and go over the protocol that we are talking about and kind of explain it a tiny bit more. And I'm excited because Dr. Dieter did such a good job explaining the protocol that this part is going to be very quick. And so hopefully I can get through this, and then we can have a few moments at the end for questions and answers if we have the time. But let me share my screen really quickly, because I work with visuals here. So I'm going to show you this. And Dr. Dieter did such a wonderful job with explaining what insulin resistance is, why we have it. But I want you to look at this wheel of misfortune that we have up here, because I want you to see if you find yourself on this list. If you find somebody you know on this list. I shared my story in the beginning here. I had so many of these issues. And the problem is 93% of Americans are struggling with their metabolic health. Only 7% of American adults have good cardiometabolic health. And so you might be thinking, I don't know, like they're talking a lot about this. I'm not sure though. But I want you to consider this. So many of the issues that insulin resistance causes, we really can't see with the eye. And so I want you to think of how many people you know that are struggling with anxiety and depression. I want you to think of how many people have some skin issues, have psoriasis, adult acne. How many people have excess belly fat? How many people are suffering with IBS, right? A direct cause of this gut imbalance. But when you see them, you might not know that that's what they're struggling with. You might have people all around you who can't stop thinking about food, who snack continually all day long. And this is the issue that we are dealing with. And so it might be you whose heart right now is going, yep, that's me. I've got this, 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 and this. But it might be somebody that you know. And when I think of who would I want to help, now that I've helped myself, who would I want to have helped? I think of my grandma. This is my grandma Pack. I love her dearly. She passed along her love of See's candy and coral lipstick to me. But my grandmother was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at the age of 42. I was diagnosed with prediabetes at the age of 39. And my memories of my grandmother were her eating, injecting, and repeating. And if I could go back and help my sweet grandma Pack, who I love dearly, everything would have been different for her. She died at the age of 77 from her heart issues. She had a quadruple bypass when I was 8 years old. And so I want you to think, once you help yourself first, who else can you share this with? Because our solution is working. So the solution that we're talking about, the Feel Great system, has 5 patents on it. It has been clinically studied at some of the top universities and hospitals in the world. This is not just me saying this. This is actual proof. It is safe and natural. And so like Dr. Dieter already explained what the Unimate does and what the balance does, I want to just quickly tell you how you would use this. So for me, what I do is it's super simple. Okay, my brain possibly works the exact opposite of Dr. Dieter's. He knows all the science. I'm like, okay, I sip on the yerba mate concentrate, the Unimate. I sip on it when I'm not eating. And the balance, the fiber, I take it right before I eat. And that is really it. I most mornings skip breakfast. I sip on that yerba mate. It's helping my cells just feel better, literally on a cellular level. I am feeling better. It's increasing fat burning. It is increasing my body's production of the GLP-1 hormone. It is absolutely fantastic. It helps me forget about food. So basically, I sip on it when I'm not eating. And then the fiber I take right before I eat. And that is it. That fiber is going to help me feel full. That fiber is going to prevent me from overeating. But really, one of the main wonderful things it's doing is it's decreasing that post-meal glucose spike by up to about 40%. So if we can picture Dr. Dieter's scale right there of his pasta, right? And the one had the 160 blood sugar and his was the 80 because of that fiber. That is exactly what this is doing. And all I have to do is pour it in a little bit of water and shake it up and drink it right before I eat. This comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you use these products consistently, how they're meant to be used, and you do not have results, you can get your money back. But it is few and far between that people ask for a refund, because if you're really using it, you're going to see those results. It is also cost neutral. And how it's cost neutral, I would actually love it if you would put in the chat for me how much a meal costs nowadays. Okay, so if you were to, even if you were trying to eat like cheaply, how much would you be spending per meal? Okay, so put in the chat for me, how much are you spending when you go out to eat, or you're grabbing a breakfast, or you're grabbing a sandwich at lunchtime, or even if you're going to the grocery store and buying food and making it at home, right? $10, $12, $15, $20, right? I think that we are going to save, this is very conservative, about $5 to $10 every single meal. And so for me, this became cost neutral because most days I don't eat breakfast. And even if I do eat a small breakfast, I am not snacking throughout the day. And it has been wonderful because I have been able to replace those snacks and that excess food with this protocol. And you guys, I just hope you know how real this is. I have absolutely been given my life back. Absolutely been given my life back. And I wish that I could have shared this with my grandmother. Unfortunately, it was too late for her. But at the end of the day, these tools are working. And if we understand even like a fraction of what Dr. Dieter said, it all starts to make sense. And we can start putting one foot in front of the other and making these lifestyle changes and using these tools that really can help you. And so before we jump into, I think we have like a minute or two for some question and answers. I'll pull Dr. Dieter back on here. But if you have been using the protocol, I would love it if you could put in the chat, you don't need to exaggerate. I would love it if you would put in the chat some victories that you have had, either scale victories or non-scale victories, but what has this protocol done for you? And I have a feeling this chat is going to start to go crazy because, like I said, I'm not a unicorn. I'm not the only one this has worked for. This has helped hundreds and hundreds of people. So if you've been using the protocol, will you please put your results in the chat, and I will bring some of those up and read some of those while I grab Dr. Dieter back here for me. Okay. We have major reduction in inflammation. Liver MRI became normal after 2 months on the system. Just did a 24-hour fast without thinking about it. No more inflammation, no more acid reflux, no more leaky gut, blood pressure normalized, finally sleeping. If you are a woman in perimenopause or menopause, listen up. Finally sleeping. Lost 40 pounds in 3.5 months. Husband's off acid reflux meds and statin. Mom reversed type 2 and off statin meds. Mother-in-law off blood pressure meds in 2 months after 20 years. No longer needs oxygen and off statin meds. No longer pre-diabetic. Both lost 40 to 50 pounds. Wow. You guys, I can't even keep up with this. Dropped 3 pant sizes in 4 months. No more anxiety, gut issues, brain fog. This is absolutely, it's so inspiring. So inspiring. So let me grab Dr. Dieter, and I can't see if there are any questions in the chat. Were you able to see any, Dr. Dieter?
I saw a couple of questions in the chat. The first question was, diabetes is not genetic. And that was one question I say. We have to separate diabetes, type 1, type 2. Yeah. Type 2, we've been made to believe a host of diabetes, metabolic diabetes is type 2 diabetes. We've been made to believe that is genetic, but it's not the case. In fact, diabetes, type 2 diabetes is principally the result of our lifestyle. You see, if you went back 200 years ago in the past, with a time machine, there was nobody living 300 years ago that had diabetes. And if you look at what has happened to our food, 200 years ago compared to now, our foods are so different. So type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle issue that comes from chronic overnutrition. Simple. And then there was the other question about Crohn's disease, if you have Crohn's disease, you cannot really take the fiber until your good bacteria gets better. Unfortunately, that's not true. So if you have Crohn's disease, fiber is your friend. I want you to understand that. Now, every time a lot of GI doctors will say, hey, you have to be careful with fiber because it's going to cause constipation. Yes and no. Yes, if you are not taking an adequate amount of fiber and then you introduce fiber into your system, you're going to have a period where your colon has to acclimatize, and in those periods, you will have constipation. But if you are taking a regular amount of fiber, you will not have constipation. So, unfortunately, if you have Crohn's disease, the way you get to restore your gut balance is introducing fiber. You're not going to be able to restore your gut balance just by itself without fiber. So I will say it's not true that you need to have your good bacteria go back to normal first before you start the fiber. So those were the two questions I saw in the chat.
Yeah, I see one that just popped up that we'll answer this one. If you see a couple more, I think we have another minute or so, but this one said, I think I need about 100 grams of protein a day. How can I get that if I only eat 2 meals a day? Wouldn't that be eating too much protein at one meal? And I can just speak for myself. I try to get 100 grams of protein every day, and I do it in 2 meals. I do. And I used to think like, oh, you could only get 30 grams. And then it was, all these stories in my mind. But I do about 100 grams in my 2 meals very easily, and I feel good, and I'm not hungry because I'm actually eating a good amount of protein.
All right, there's an important question about taking blood thinners. So there is no contraindication to taking blood thinners with this protocol. This is food, and these two products are made 100% from plants. The plants in this product do not cause your eye now to deviate out of protocol. So there are no contraindications to being on blood thinners and taking this.
Perfect. Hey, I don't see any more that are popping out at me, but so what we want to close with is whoever invited you to this call, just reach out to them and have them send you the link. If you haven't started yet and you want to start on the protocol, reach out to your sweet friend who thought of you and who invited you, because they want you to feel better. And you truly can. It's just a few simple steps and you've got this. So Dr. Dieter, thank you. Your brain just blows me away. It is brilliant, and thank you for sharing such wonderful information with us. So we will talk to you later.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.